All right, welcome back, everyone. We got so many requests to do a deep dive into the world of diamonds, and we heard you.
Definitely heard them.
Yeah, so we're ready to deliver. But I will say, this isn't your typical, glitz and glam diamond tour. We're going deep.
Going way deep.
Yeah, we're using excerpts from a book called The Diamond Deception, Unmasking a Manufactured Desire.
That's our book.
Oh, it is. It really is. And it helps uncover some, the hidden stories behind these glittering stones.
That's right. Get ready to maybe have some assumptions challenged, because what this book does so well is it reveals the industry's very carefully constructed narrative around diamonds.
Yeah.
Starting with the very idea of what makes them precious.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, let's unpack that a little because, I get it. A diamond is, beautiful and captivating.
Sure.
But is it really, is their value more about perception than reality?
It really is fascinating how we've been conditioned to see diamonds as, inherently valuable.
Yeah.
Chemically speaking,
Right.
simply carbon atoms arranged in a particular way.
Yeah.
It's the same element found in graphite.
Really?
Stuff in your pencil.
Wait, so the diamond on my ring, is essentially fancy pencil lead?
It is.
Wow.
It's such a powerful illustration of how much of a diamond's value is, manufactured.
Yeah.
And speaking of manufactured, it leads us to a very interesting development. Lab-grown diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
These are chemically identical to mined diamonds. They're often more affordable and ethically produced.
Lab-grown diamonds, that's where I think things start to get, really interesting. But before we jump into that,
Sure.
I kind of want to go back to the beginning. How did this whole diamond craze even start?
Well, you can't talk about diamonds without talking about De Beers.
Right, De Beers, yep.
They've been the dominant force in the industry for over a century,
Yeah.
strategically controlling the supply to create a sense of scarcity.
So they've basically been, pulling the strings behind the curtain this whole time and kind of influencing how we value diamonds.
Precisely, yeah. And think about their iconic "A Diamond is Forever" campaign,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That just brilliantly linked diamonds with love, romance, and enduring value.
Well, it was everywhere, that campaign. In magazines, on billboards, even in movies.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was no accident.
Right.
De Beers actively worked to embed diamonds into popular culture, even influencing Hollywood to feature them in films. They understood the power of storytelling and association.
It's amazing how one company could have such a huge impact on, global perceptions.
Really is.
But this control over the diamond market, it's also had some pretty dark consequences too, right?
Unfortunately, yes, diamonds have played a role in funding conflicts and human rights abuses, particularly in parts of Africa.
Right.
The term blood diamonds is a chilling reminder of that reality.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to believe that something so beautiful could be connected to such terrible things.
I know.
The source material highlights conflicts in Congo, Angola, Sierra Leone. Can you tell us a bit more about, what happened in these places?
Well, these countries have experienced these brutal civil wars, and diamonds became a source of funding for rebel groups.
Yeah.
We're talking forced labor, violence, even child soldiers forced to work in diamond mines.
That's awful.
Yeah.
So how has the industry kind of responded to these ethical challenges? I remember hearing about something called the Kimberley process.
Right, the Kimberley process.
Yeah.
That was an international effort to try and curb the trade of conflict diamonds.
Okay.
It aimed to create a certification system to track diamonds and ensure that they were sourced from, legitimate non-conflict zones.
So, in theory, a diamond with a Kimberley process certificate, that should be ethically sourced.
In theory, that's the idea, but it's not without flaws.
Right.
It's been criticized for loopholes and for failing to address human rights abuses committed by governments, not just rebel groups.
So even with the Kimberley process, things aren't as black and white as they might seem.
Exactly. It's very complex, and consumers really need to be aware of the limitations of these certification systems.
Yeah, this is definitely giving me a new perspective on the diamond industry, for sure. And it kind of raises another question for me, too. Is the idea of diamonds as, a good investment, is that also part of this manufactured narrative?
That's a great point, and one we'll definitely delve into.
Okay.
The financial realities of diamonds are often quite different from the perception that's been promoted.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So it sounds like we're just scratching the surface here.
I think so.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive. where we'll explore the dark history of diamond security and go even deeper into the blood diamond trade.
It's going to be good.
Welcome back to our Diamond Deep Dive. So last time we were talking about how, De Beers really went all out to carefully craft this image of diamonds as being super precious and valuable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But controlling that narrative also meant controlling the diamonds themselves, right?
Absolutely. Maintaining that illusion of scarcity and value, it requires some pretty intense security measures, especially at the mines.
And that brings us to one of the most, bizarre stories I read in the Diamond Deception. Something about pigeons being used as security guards.
Yeah, pigeons.
Yeah.
This was at the Alex Core mine in South Africa.
Wow.
They actually trained pigeons to patrol the skies and report any kind of suspicious activity that might, point to diamond smuggling.
Wait, are you serious? Pigeons as flying diamond detectives? How did that even work?
Well, the mine was incredibly strict. Miners weren't allowed to leave for months at a time.
Oh, wow.
And they were subjected to these intense body searches when they did.
Jeez.
They were even given medication to prevent them from swallowing diamonds.
It sounds more like a prison than a workplace.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
I mean, these extreme measures highlight how valuable,
Right.
diamonds were seen as a commodity.
Yeah.
And the lengths that companies would go to protect their assets.
Yeah.
The pigeons were just another layer in that security system. They were trained to spot anything out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Like someone trying to toss a package over the fence or something like that.
So they were feathered security cameras that actually work?
Surprisingly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The pigeons had a pretty good success rate at, identifying smuggling attempts.
Wow.
There are even stories of miners trying to train their own pigeons to smuggle diamonds out.
Oh, no way.
But the police pigeons are always one step ahead.
It's like a bird battle of wits.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. But it's also a pretty stark reminder of just how far the industry went to control the diamond trade.
For sure.
And sadly, that control, or the desire for it, I guess, played a role in some of the darker chapters of diamond history, right?
Yeah, the blood diamond trade
is
a really tragic example of how the pursuit of diamonds just fueled violence and human rights abuses.
We talked about the conflicts in Congo, Angola, Sierra Leone. But the Diamond Deception also mentions this figure named Serge Muller, nicknamed Mr. Blood Diamond. Can you tell us about him?
Yeah, so Serge Muller was this Belgian businessman who operated in Angola during the Civil War.
Okay.
And he was actually accused of trading weapons for diamonds, directly profiting from the conflict.
It's just horrifying to think that diamonds, we think of them as symbols of love and commitment, could be used to fuel so much violence and suffering.
I know, it's a harsh reality.
Yeah.
And the human cost is just immense.
Yeah.
Especially, the exploitation of children in diamond mining.
Yeah, the source material mentions the use of child soldiers in Sierra Leone, forced to mine diamonds in these incredibly dangerous conditions. It's hard to even imagine the trauma that these children went through.
Absolutely. The use of child labor in the diamond industry is unfortunately still a serious issue, even today.
That's awful.
It's this complex problem that's tied to poverty, lack of education, weak governance.
It makes you really question how we, as consumers, how we can even navigate this industry ethically.
Yeah.
Knowing the potential for human rights abuses, the environmental impact of mining. Can we even enjoy diamonds without feeling a sense of guilt?
It's a really valid concern, and one that I think a lot of people are grappling with.
Right.
It's about making informed choices and demanding transparency from the industry.
Okay, so how do we do that? Where do we even begin?
It starts with awareness, understanding the issues, asking questions about the origin of diamonds, and supporting companies that are actually committed to ethical and sustainable practices.
And I think this is kind of where lab-grown diamonds enter the picture, right?
Exactly. They're offering a potential solution.
Yeah.
And they're becoming increasingly popular as people seek out more ethical and sustainable options.
Yeah.
And as the technology advances, the quality just continues to improve.
We talked earlier about the example of Prime Minister Modi gifting a lab-grown diamond to Jill Biden.
Right.
That's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah.
It suggests that things are kind of changing, even at the highest levels.
It's definitely a sign that lab-grown diamonds are gaining legitimacy and acceptance.
Yeah.
They're no longer seen as this fringe alternative, but as a viable and arguably, more ethical choice.
So this is a turning point for the diamond industry.
It certainly seems that way,
Yeah.
Consumer demand for ethical and sustainable products is growing, and the diamond industry is being forced to adapt.
But we still haven't tackled that big question about diamonds as an investment.
Oh, right.
Is that just another part of the manufactured narrative that De Beers created?
That's a topic that deserves its own deep dive, and that's exactly where we're headed next.
Ooh, exciting.
So stay tuned as we uncover the truth behind the myth of diamonds as a sound investment.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our diamond deep dive. It's been pretty wild so far, right?
It really has. We've uncovered some surprising truths about this industry.
Yeah, for sure. From manufactured value to blood diamonds to, those security pigeons. I still can't get over that.
Oh, the pigeons are unforgettable, for sure.
Seriously. But now I think, we've got to tackle the big question that so many people have when they think about diamonds. Are they really a good investment?
Yeah, that's the age-old advice, right? Buy diamonds, they'll always hold their value. But after everything we've learned,
Right.
I think, you're right to maybe start doubting that a little.
Okay, so where does this myth even come from? Why do people believe this?
It's a combination of factors. I think part of it is that carefully constructed narrative we talked about, right?
Yeah.
De Beers really did a good job at associating diamonds with enduring value and permanence, the sense of legacy.
Right, that a diamond is forever campaign. I mean, it really stuck with people.
It really did, yeah, but there's also this misconception about scarcity, I think.
Okay.
While diamonds aren't as rare as we're led to believe, they are finite. And I think that contributes to, that perception of value.
But doesn't that apply to other gemstones too?
Yeah, for sure. But diamonds, I think they have this very unique cultural significance.
But
They've
yeah.
really become the ultimate sort of love, commitment, social status, you name it.
Yeah.
And that, I think that emotional weight further fuels the idea that, they are inherently valuable.
So it's more about sentiment than actual financial return.
Exactly. The problem with diamonds as an investment is that unlike, say, gold or stocks,
Yeah.
they lack a standardized market. There's no central exchange or, universally agreed upon pricing system.
So it's hard to really know what a diamond is actually worth.
Exactly. The value is often very subjective. It depends on, the 4Cs, cut, clarity, color, carat, but also on just finding the right buyer at the right time.
That doesn't sound like a very, reliable investment strategy.
It's really not.
Yeah.
The diamond deception actually highlights this with a story about a woman who, she couldn't resell her $100,000 diamond ring.
Oh.
Yeah, and she learned the hard way that diamonds just aren't as liquid as other assets.
It's a harsh reality check, especially when you consider that, most people are buying diamonds for emotional reasons, not as financial investments.
It's true. And
Yeah.
let's not forget the ethical and environmental concerns
Right.
surrounding mine diamonds. You've talked about blood diamonds and the Kimberley process, but even with certified diamonds, there's still that environmental impact of mining to consider.
It's a lot to think about. So I guess, where does this leave us? What's the takeaway for our listeners who are, thinking about maybe buying a diamond?
I think the key is to be informed and realistic.
Okay.
Understand that a diamond's value is largely determined by market forces and perception, not like some inherent worth.
Right.
If you're buying a diamond as a symbol of love, commitment, that's a personal choice.
Here.
But don't go into it expecting a huge financial return.
So kind of separate the emotional value from the financial value.
Exactly, and consider the ethical implications.
Yeah.
If you're concerned about human rights abuses, environmental damage, really explore lab-grown diamonds as an alternative.
We've talked about how lab-grown diamonds are getting more popular. They're even, getting recognition from world leaders.
Yeah, they are.
So is this like the future of the diamond industry, would you say?
It's definitely a possibility. As technology advances and consumer awareness grows, they could become, the preferred choice.
Yeah.
They offer a way to enjoy the beauty of diamonds without the ethical and environmental baggage.
That's a nice thought. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. As we wrap up this deep dive on diamonds, maybe we can leave our listeners with a final question.
Sure.
Knowing what you now know about diamonds, their history, their value, and, all those ethical considerations, what will your next diamond decision be?
Will you choose tradition? Or will you embrace a more sustainable and ethical future? The choice, as always, is yours. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
See you next time.